Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders now holds the lead in a New Hampshire poll. It shows him surging ahead. He's now leading by 9 points, his biggest margin yet. The poll also included potential candidate Vice President Joe Biden.
Emphasis on potential, of course. All of this sparking new efforts by the Clinton crowd to refocus and re-energize her campaign, which kept her busy during the Labor Day weekend. She hit early decision states, New Hampshire being one of them, also Iowa, and worked on holding on to a narrowing lead there. Let's bring in Brit Hume, Fox News senior political analyst. So, Brit, a lot of attention on these numbers out of New Hampshire, but when you look at Hillary Clinton and some of the national numbers for Real Clear Politics, she's still far ahead. So what's the significance of these numbers at this point in the campaign? What's at stake?
Well, the first significance, I think it's fair to say, is that nobody ever expected that Bernie Sanders, of all people, would be leading her in New Hampshire at this stage and doing as well as he's done elsewhere. And it bespeaks a certain yearning in the Democratic Party for someone, exciting, somebody with the sort of the full ideology that many Democrats yearn for. And that's what we're looking at. And she's not exciting people. The notion, Jenna, romance has a lot to do with politics.
Oh, really? Talk to us about that, Britt. That sounds great. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, there was something romantic about the idea of the first African-American president and someone who was a man so appealing that he would be a great leader. Well, he's had a hard time in office, but he got reelected. So that's something. Hillary could be the first woman president. There's something romantic about that in the eyes of the liberals in particular, and a great many women. But that idea has sort of been around a while. Now comes Bernie Sanders with the full portfolio of left-wing ideas that many Democrats care about, and he might seem like an odd custodian of that, but he is the one, and he's doing pretty well. So this suggests that she's beatable, possibly in the primary, certainly in a general election. And that's the significance of where it all stands. Okay, so she remains the likely winner.
Let's extend that analogy, though. As we see in politics, the public falls in and out of love with a lot of different candidates at different times. Is it possible that Hillary Clinton does lose New Hampshire? Let's say she also loses Iowa. Can she still become the candidate for president?
Yeah, you could. Well, history has shown that you can lose those states and still prevail, but it's not easy if you lose them both. So she needs to win Iowa. You can then lose New Hampshire, or if you lose Iowa and then win New Hampshire, or do so very well there that it's in the expectations game it's a win. She does probably have the resources to wage a long campaign. And if Joe Biden gets in, of course, that's the wild card in the deck, Jenna, because we don't know how much Sanders support would go to him and how much Clinton support would go to him.
Do you think Democrats would like to fall in love with Joe?
Well, I think a lot of them are very fond of Joe Biden because he's been around a long time and he's got a certain, Joe Biden in person is about as likable a person as you'll ever meet. It's impossible not to like the guy. And, he's been a loyal lieutenant as vice president to President Obama. He would be someone that could be counted on to carry on, at least in the eyes of Democrats, the policies of Barack Obama. So he would have some real appeal. The question is, who does he hurt and who does he help?
Sure. And that is a big question. And we'll see. Everyone said, and I say everyone, meaning the pundits, saying, Labor Day is going to be the decision day for Joe Biden. And of course, we're still waiting for that decision. I just want to ask you about this comment from a leader in the DNC, the vice chairman of the DNC, in the Washington Post, quoted saying this today about Hillary Clinton. Because of all the stuff surrounding her, she, more than others, needs a couple of months to knock the dust off and to get real again. Britt, what do you think of that comment coming from a member of her own party and someone in leadership?
Well, I think it tells you that the guy thinks that she's in trouble, right? And it also tells you that I think it's in a way it's kind of silly. I mean, here's somebody who's been out on this campaign trail now for some time. You remember the big deal when she first went out and she was going to go introduce herself to voters and she was going to do this long listening tour and that was going to, shore up her support with the grassroots and all that. Well, she's got nothing but trouble. And then she's got this anchor around her neck in the form of the email scandal, which is going to continue to trouble her because, emails are going to be released like cards off the top of a deck periodically from, as far as the eye can see. So she's got some real burdens, and the idea that she's going to reinvent herself in some way or sort of relaunch herself, I think is fanciful because she's been around so long, is so well known, people know her, and a lot of people have quite firm and long-established opinions about her. So she's got a real hill to climb if she's going to try to reawaken some new sense of herself.
Well, according to her staff, this starts this week. You see the stories of the New York Times, Washington Post, and others talking about this new strategy and some of the new interviews that she's doing. So we'll see if that changes any of the numbers in some of those early states. I just want to ask you quickly, Brit, about Congress being back in session. Here they are. They're coming back to Washington, D.C. You have this huge battle over the Iran nuclear agreement. If Republicans pass the legislation rejecting the deal, the president is likely to veto it because they still don't have the votes in the Senate to override it. The Wall Street Journal is describing this deal as all but guaranteed. Do you see it the same way?
Yeah, I do. It's going into effect is probably guaranteed, unless the Iranian parliament does something strange. But make no mistake about it, Jenna, the deal, remember, this is an executive agreement, not a treaty. So it's not binding on future presidents. So it stands on somewhat shaky ground for that reason. And if it fails to achieve a majority vote in the Congress, that will contribute a sort of political shakiness to it as well. So it's a vulnerable agreement, highly controversial, and not acceptable, it would seem, to a majority of Congress. That is not something that's a desirable outcome for this president and his major foreign policy, or a major foreign policy achievement, at least in his eyes.
So you're saying technically, even if the president does get this victory as it appears through the votes, it's still a weaker victory than the administration would have liked.
Yeah, I mean, it puts a kind of asterisk next to it, not approved by Congress. Now, executive agreements don't have to be to go into effect. But having it rejected by a majority and surviving on the strength of a veto is hardly a feather in the cap of the president or this deal.
Well, it's a big topic of conversation. We'll see if anything unexpected happens. In the meantime, though, certainly a lot to watch in D.C., and it's great to have you to watch it with us, Brit. As always, thank you.